I do a lot of teaching. So when people say, how do I find a style? How do I find my style? And I say, well, be inspired by 5, 10, 20 photographers. And literally, Picasso is completely right. Artists steal. You take bits and you think, well, I quite like the way you've done that, quite like the way you've done that, quite like the way you've done that. And you create this own recipe of your own work, which is totally different to all of those people. And that is how you kind of create your style.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. I'm Sam Moores, and with me today I have, well, I would normally say your full name, so I would say Amy Shaw, but you're also Amy Heynes. So, hello.
Hello. Sorry about the confusion.
Sorry,
already.
That's a very odd, that's not your fault, that is me just being odd. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about sort of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I suppose my personal name, we'll go with that one first, is Amy Heynes, since I got married, but I still go professionally by Amy Shaw. Thank you very much. And I am an automotive and lifestyle photographer, and I've been that for about 12 years now.
Automotive and lifestyle. I like that addition to it.
Yeah, because it's not just, if I just say automotive, it ends up just being like, people just think just cars and motorcycles. And like, I describe myself as like a people photographer in an automotive world. So I much prefer to photograph people and stories and things, and the cars is like an addition. So that, and lifestyle bit kind of helps cover that, I guess.
I like that because I don't know whether you get this, if people say, so what do you do? I photograph cars. And then the follow-up question is, just cars?
Yeah.
Do you get that?
Yeah, just cars. No, the one I get most, and I don't know if you get it, is is that your full-time job? I get that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I guess yes, it's my full-time job. So and they're like, it's difficult to try and do that. I'm like, yeah, and then they're like, do you have a second job or anything? So I get that a little bit, which is sometimes I used to get frustrated by it, but now I just let it kind of roll on. I'm like, no, I've done it full time.
People don't know.
Quite a while.
They don't know what they don't know.
It's a weird concept of a job, though. So I understand that people don't know. Like, to say that you make a living by taking pictures of cars and motorcycles and boats and trains and people. It's a bit of a funny one, really.
Yeah, I guess it is, but I guess also, whenever, I don't know whether you find this, I've got loads of friends, none of them will be listening to this, so this is fine. And they lots of them work in various like consultancy type businesses, and I am forever asking what they do, like I know they work for insert firm, but I'm like, but what do you actually do? And they give me an answer and I go, none the wiser.
Yeah. It's the same, like my brother as well. I say to my brother, what do you do? And he's like, I manage people. And for a start, that's a weird concept. My little brother managing people. But then I'm like, but what does your day to day look like? And he's just like, meetings. I'm like, but about what? So it's, I don't.
it's funny.
I don't know what they do. So,
and someone that says, those sort of people often give an answer. They're like, yeah, I'm a manager and I have meetings. And you're like, that has told me absolutely nothing. Yeah. If I say I take photos of cars or I've got a podcast or whatever, you're like, I've told you what I do. If you just try to extrapolate what that is, it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, it does. No, you're totally right. Yeah, no, it's one of the not frustrations of the job, but as people, I suppose the second question, I don't know if you get this as a follow up as well, is so do you go to like car shows, take pictures of cars, and then try and sell them? I'm like, you can do that, but there's an alternative way of working where you get hired by clients to go and do stuff. So trying to explain the job, and people I think are surprised, especially if you are not in the automotive world at all. It's a weird concept to try and get, but it's as you know, there's quite a few of us, and there's work aplenty. So it's obviously, it seems to be working. I don't know how. I say that I'm winging it until I've got to get a real job, and at some point I think I am going to have to get a real job. What job that would be, I have no idea. My only skill is taking pictures, mainly of cars, so I have nothing else I can offer to the world. So,
and people, which is an important distinction, I would say, because I reckon most. And I remember when it's not exactly, but I remember when I first saw some of your photos, and I was like, "Who's this person? Like, has she ever taken a picture of a car before?" And I think I literally saw like the first shoot, and I was like, "No." And I was like, "But it's very different. It's very different to literally everyone else," because I know I definitely want to talk to you about you know, how you got to this point and how you developed your sort of take on the whole thing. Because it was instantly, when I saw your photo, I was like, you're coming at this from a slightly different angle. Like, you are coming at this from a different angle to all the like camera car nerds before. How did this come about? How did you get into photography and end up photographing cars and people?
So basically, when I was 16 years old, on my 16th birthday, I got given a camera, Nikon D50, which is a really little piddly camera, and a 50mm 1.8 lens by my mum and dad. And because I just started getting into photography, but I really loved photojournalism of a lot of kind of conflict photographers, celebrity photographers, not like paparazzi, but like one of my favorite is a chap called Harry Benson. And he just kind of followed the Beatles for quite a while, and certain presidents. And it was really interesting documenting people's lives. And I thought, that looks cool. And so that's kind of where the people bit started. And then my dad is an amazing artist and photographer in his own right as well. And he just shot weddings kind of at the weekends for like 200 quid cash or something like that. He is a terrible businessman, but a fantastic, talented man. So as kind of I started getting into photography and enjoying it, I thought, well, my dad said, why don't you come along with me to a wedding or two, as a kind of a secondary shooter and to get some experience. And I thought, okay, that sounds like fun. And then by the time I was kind of like 17, 18, I was like, look, Dad, let me do the talking. I'll let me see if I can get us a bit more cash out of these people, basically. So my initial photography was all wedding photography. And I did that from probably the age of 17 until I graduated university in 2013. And then basically, at university, I did something completely different. Had quite a bad accident with my hand. I caught it in a polishing machine and it kind of got put off what I was doing at university because of that. Yeah. And so I've got a wicked scar, but it was one of those, I thought, this metal smithing business isn't quite for me. I don't really quite like the idea of catching your hand at anything else. And so I just thought, well, I'll just kind of I was living in this house I'm currently recording. I'm at my mum and dad's. I was living here with my mum and dad. So I just was a graduate without a job to a photographer / book designer. I started off doing book design, still living with my parents. So I just kind of started off freelance from the word go, really, mainly doing weddings. And then in August 2023, I photographed an amazing wedding and then a replica Ferrari P4 that friends of my dad's had built. And those two things basically kickstarted my career. So a month later, I went to the Goodwood Revival and shot that just for fun. Because my dad was like, I know you're not that into cars, but I think you'll really like this event. It's full of like life and the costumes are amazing, the dancing's amazing, and that's not even when you get to the racing. I did drive a classic Mini at the time because my dad's always been a car person, so I guess I was already starting to get into cars, but my interest then is still roughly the same as it is now, where if somebody was like, it's weird, last night I was lying in bed thinking about what would I do if I had the opportunity to start driving a D-type. I don't know what made me think about that at 3 a.m. when I was feeding my son. But it was. And I thought, you know what, I wouldn't really have any interest because incredible cars and, it would be obviously an opportunity I probably would not turn down. But my interest in cars has always been the aesthetics of them, the visual shapes and the design of them. So I've always been an artist and photographer, and art has always been something I thought I would end up doing, whether that be fine artist or I thought I'd be a designer for a long time. So when it comes down to the actual driving or engineering side of things, I have less interest. So it was always just the visual. So I guess, going back to your original question, starting to shoot cars, my knowledge was just weddings. So I shot a car in the only way I knew how, and that was as if it was a wedding couple. So quite this romantic vibe about it, lots of, super, depth of field, like low f-stops, kind of hazy blacks, because that's how I shot weddings. And of course, if you're thinking about commercial photography of cars, especially, the product has to be in focus from front to back. So even now, when I do commercial photography, I'm like, ooh, this doesn't feel like my work. And I actually don't like a lot of the commercial stuff I do because I'm working for a client rather than shooting for myself. And so I'm trying to find the clients that like the way that I shoot, just with all this kind of like super dropped off kind of focus. But that's kind of how the style came along. And as you said, I don't know if it was something that I was kind of brought fresh to the automotive world, and I think alternatively, there must have been people doing it as well, because Instagram had only really just started. It wasn't seen very often about this kind of more photojournalism, romantic way of shooting cars. So whether I was one of the first, or if we hadn't ever crossed paths with each other, simply because there wasn't a social media platform to be able to do so, I think I was one of the early ones to kind of start being seen doing it. Whether I was or not is a different matter, but I think I was one of the first ones to be seen doing it. And that kind of helped get me noticed, I guess. The fact I was female, maybe slight edge as well, but that was pure fluke. That I was in automotive world. It's people say, do I think it's given me an advantage? In some ways, mainly that is it. You just remembered to be the girl car photographer, because there's not very many of us. There's more of us now, which is great. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. It was a very romantic kind of vibe into what was is even now, but can be a very sharp, masculine, aggressive, car photography. I think classic cars are always a lot softer and a lot more romantic rather than modern cars, which every modern car design now is very aggressive. So it works to have an aggressive way of photographing them as well. I don't think my work does well with modern cars. It depends on the modern car, I have to say, and the backdrop. But classic cars ended up being the thing I really enjoyed shooting from an aesthetic point of view, and I think my style suited. So it means I'm not a very well off photographer, because I don't shoot commercial jobs for 25,000-50,000 pound a pop. Just go and do all the little editorial fun stuff, but I have a great time doing it. So, and yeah, I'm happy and it's all good.
Yeah, it's clear that your interest in and coming from weddings makes a lot of sense. If you look at if I think about what works in a wedding setting, definitely your let's say style of editing, we can talk about that later, but I remember at the beginning it was very much for like crushed blacks. So for people that are listening, if you looked at a picture, black is not like completely black, it's like moved up into the grays, dark gray, and it gives it this very look and might seem sort of slightly vintagey or whatever. Basically loads of people love it, but focusing on details and people and then having some cars thrown in there, that sort of that really comes across differently, because most people I think that get into photographing cars are like super car nerds. And when you come at it from that point of view, I think you see the car, and this was me at the beginning anyway, of I see the car and I want nothing else. I'm like, the perfect picture of the car is the perfect car in the perfect location. No people. Why would I want people anywhere near this car? Let's like either make it so that they've blurred all the way out or whatever. Whereas right from the get-go, you've got like people smiling, having a good time at the event.
Yeah. Shooting over people's shoulders is like one of my favorite things. And you've got to be quiet doing it though, because the second that they realize it, they're like, oh, sorry, let me move out your way. I'm like, no, you're on my foreground. So it's the, it's the
100%.
It's part of the storytelling, I guess, more than just taking a picture of a car, because I don't think I'm good at taking a picture of a car. Like I couldn't do what you do well, because I'm not wired that way. I feel that because of the weddings, it's all about, okay, where's the additional layer to the story? And that's why I'm a terrible commercial photographer, but a better storyteller. So it's, I just kind of try to shoot to my skills.
I think I hope there's a trend over time that the more basically stuff that could almost be generated by AI, like a car super focused in a perfect location, which I love that sort of stuff. It doesn't tell you much. It doesn't give you a story.
Yeah.
Whereas I know whenever I look at your stuff, you're always showing there's little details of people around and interacting and whatever. And that is the story. That is the story around whatever it is you're photographing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's just always been always been the interest. The second that it's whenever I go to a location to shoot, the first thing I'm looking at is, okay, what's something I can put in front of this, car or lens, or what's the thing going on behind it. The car is usually the last thing I'm thinking about, because if I'm photographing it, it's probably going to be gorgeous. I know the angles of what I think cars look good at. It's everything else that I've got to really think about and kind of plan and investigate, and everything from light to, the leading lines, foreground, background. It's that's the more confusing bit, whereas the car just is in my opinion, the easy bit. But at the same time, if I was thrown into a studio and I had to photograph a car without, anything to go on, just a car in a room, and it's a gorgeous machine in a blank room with lights, I would feel so out of my comfort zone. Wouldn't have a clue what to do. So it's I work better as a fly on a wall kind of attitude than trying to create a concept that I've thought of. I think because I'm not very creative, weirdly. So this is why I probably wouldn't be good as a designer.
Really? You must be creative. You are creative.
To an extent, but it's like I find it much easier to be thrown into a moment without any preparation or any ability to change anything, and to try and photograph the best I can out of that situation, rather than being given all the options. Like, if you go to a restaurant and if you've only got 3 things on the menu, and you're like, right, well, this is what I'm going to try and go with. But if you've got 100 things and you think I can do anything, I'm like, I don't know what I want. I want all of the things, and it's I prefer the lesser options, basically. So
yeah, and I think some structure that's already there to work with.
Yes.
When did you have this early on? You go and you shoot an event. I always find this really interesting, whether it's an event or a road trip or whatever. And you're there, you're shooting, and there's some other photographers. And definitely, I imagine, early days, you shoot some photos, and the other photographers shoot some photos, and maybe you've got some freak of nature there as well, who's just obscene. And you look at the photos at the end of the day, and you're like, what? I was there.
Yep.
Where did these photos come from?
Yes.
Why do your photos look way better than my photos, and we're basically standing next to each other?
Yes, it's frustrating, but you just kind of have to. When I do talks, a quote I use, and I have to remind myself of it, is "Comparison is the thief of joy." And so I have to remind myself that sometimes I'm in that photographer's shoes, and other people are looking at my work, being like, "Man, we were in the same situation,"
100%.
Because I know it's happened. And whereas, when it happens the other way around a lot, I remember going to do you remember that really, really cold members meeting, the one with the snow? Some people.
I didn't go, but I remember it. Yeah,
it was chilly. Some of the people, the snow shots that people got, I think I was hiding inside somewhere. I was like, absolutely not. I was there and I was not shooting. It was. Then you see some of the shots and you're like, man, if I just put a bit of effort in, maybe that I could have got something. But it's the same. Like Jason Fong is an incredible photographer. The amount of stuff he gets, and I'm like, well, there's just no point me even trying, is there? I mean, especially when it comes down to track photography. Track photography is something that I don't do enough of, so therefore it's not my greatest skill. Whereas he can absolutely nail it, and I get inspired by his work. I think his work is stunning on track. So that's probably the same thing, that I'm like, what do I? Is there any point in me continuing this? I'll just go and take pictures of people, because that's what I'm better at. So that's what I end up doing.
Where do you search for inspiration in your photography and that sort of stuff? Are there any particular sort of avenues that you pull from?
Probably people that I follow on Instagram that are not car photographers. I think the thing I struggle with now about social media, Instagram, is that I'm following so many car things, people, that I'm almost feeling completely not bored of it, but it's the job. It's my job. It's your job. It's my entire world. It's my passion. So my hobby. It's what my husband and I have started a workshop. Cars are our entire life. So then when I go into my social feeds and I see automotive, it just gets a bit. I'm not inspired because there's nothing different. So the thing that I now look for are photographers and whether that's old or new, alive or dead, that just show me something that I find really inspirational of something completely different. So I follow a couple of cowboy photographers, which I find are wicked.
Nice.
A nightclub photographer who I think is awesome. Some, photographers that are no longer here, such as Vivian Mayer, her feed. Just a bunch of kind of photographers like that where they don't have to be anything in my world. And if anything, that is why they inspire me, because I'm not trying to, I'm not suddenly comparing my work to theirs. I'm just looking at their work as how they look at light, how they compose people, how they've shot this, street scene, or whatever the inspiration is. A lot of kind of cinematography as well. I love film, but I don't have the time to watch enough films, but I will purposely go and watch a film if I know it's visually gorgeous. So I think the last one, was quite, I admit it was quite a while, but one that stands out to me was La La Land. I hate musicals. They are not for me.
Me
but,
too.
Somebody said to me, they were like, yeah, but it's visually beautiful. I thought, go on then. And I didn't want to have to subject anybody else to go with me. So I went on my own just to go and watch it from a visual point of view. So, I suppose that's where the inspiration comes from. Not cars anymore, or automotive photography, because I just either end up thinking, well, most of the time I just feel crap about myself. If there's someone that inspires me in the car world, I'm like, well, you've got that job and I've not got it. So you're my friend and I like you as a person, but I feel rubbish about my work ability. So it's I'm making it out like I suffer every time I see other people's work. Sometimes you see them and you think that is wicked, and I'm you've done such a good job, and I wouldn't have the idea to do that, or if I was, I think I'd shoot something similar. But yeah, the inspiration side, no, probably definitely something that's not automotive, I think.
Yeah, and as you say, pulling from not automotive, I find social media very difficult at the moment. Just in the last couple of years, I just kind of hate posting in any way, shape, or form. But I follow lots of photographers that are nothing to do with cars, and I see them doing some cool stuff. And I definitely had at one point where I go, oh, that was a really cool idea, and then I go, well, I can't borrow that idea because they've done it, and everyone will know that I've taken it from them. And a lesson I think the first one I can think of that just pops in my mind was the first time I saw someone who'd got their phone and they'd taken a picture on a picture, then they put it on their phone, and then there's this picture in the background. I thought it was neat. It then got played out and done by loads of people, but I first saw it from someone who was not a car photographer. And I was like, everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to know I've just stolen from this person. It's just not true in the slightest.
Maybe the way that we get around this is you just say, oh, it's the trend. It's the new trend. The social media trend is to do this thing. So I've not stolen it. It's a trend.
You've got to try all of the things, because everything's kind of been done before. You've got to try a bit of everything, don't you? And then you work out what you like, and your mix is going to be different.
Well, this is how, when people say to me, I do a lot of teaching. So when people say, how do I find a style? How do I find my style? And I say, well, be inspired by 5, 10, 20 photographers. And literally, Picasso is completely right. Artists steal. You take bits and you think, well, I quite like the way you've done that. I quite like the way you've done that. I quite like the way you've done that. And you create this own recipe of your own work, which is totally different to all of those people. And that is how you kind of create your style. Nobody is obviously you then try picking any original bits that you feel. So for example, I suppose in my case, the original bit, not quite original, possibly original, was shooting cars in a romantic way rather than a automotive focused way. That could be not an original idea, but it was a different angle. So like another photographer, two photographers that I talk about. The main one is a chap called Josh Paul. He shoots Formula One on a camera that's over 120 years old. And I just think that is fantastic. So even though he's probably inspired by loads of other people, that is his unique angle to try and do something a little bit different. And I absolutely love his work. There's another photographer, I can't remember the name of him at the minute, but he was a big commercial sports photographer, did loads of stuff like Nike and other sports brands, the Olympics. But then he started, his kid brought in this little beetle, I think it was. And he's like, hey, Dad, can we photograph this beetle? So he took all of this inspiration about shooting sports and commercial photography and shot into like micro animals. And these insects are the reason why I saw him as a TED talk, and that's how he got his TED talk. I thought, you know what, that's a cool way of doing it. So just because you feel that people have all done the same thing before and you know, you don't want to copy, if you take little bits and then try and interject your own different bit into it, that's how you're going to create your own style and stuff. So what I talk about is when doing these talks is if you're limited in anything, so limitation forces creativity. So if you want to try something just to spark an idea of trying to do something, say you shot Goodwood Revival on a film camera or just film. Okay, so your limitation is you can't shoot thousands of images. So you really got to pick and choose your shots. How are you going to do that? And that will force you to be creative. Or shoot everything on just a 50mm, 85mm, 200mm lens. Like, what would you get just from that limitation? So just even if it's not something you would take on board forever, if you're trying to spark some ideas, and it's things like that which I think can help start off your own path, really, she says.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, because photography is one of those things that, okay, not that many people take super seriously, but everyone has a go at with their phone. Like, everyone has a go at day to day. And as you say, the limitations, they're quite, can you think of any that you've done for yourself and then had a real shift afterwards?
Limitations? Probably shooting, two things. I only shoot natural light because that's what I like. I like the honesty of natural light, but also I'm self-taught. I never bother to learn about artificial lighting because it doesn't interest me. So that's a limitation. So even when it's pitch black, I will still try and be shooting. So that's why I shoot a lot of prime lenses because I go down to 1.2, 1.4. And I look for light. So the lack of light is a limitation. I'm not going to use any flash guns or tripod for long exposures. I just shoot handheld all the time in any light. So that's a limitation, I guess. And then another one, kind of similar, is I only shoot prime lenses for 95% of my work because I really like it. So the most recent one is, for about 10 years, the main two lenses that I shot with were a 35mm 1.4 and an 85mm 1.4. That was it. That's what I shot for weddings. That's why I ended up going to shoot for cars. And then Nikon brought out a 50mm 1.2 lens, and I thought, ooh, that's creamy. And I hadn't shot on 50mm probably since this Ferrari P4 shoot right at the beginning of my career. And I thought, oh, go on. I borrowed it for a shoot we were doing. And I thought, that's a gorgeous lens. I'll pick that one up again. Anyway, since then, sometimes if I'm just trying to, like, okay, last week I was doing a shoot for a light bulb company of all people for car light bulbs. There's a few other bits they sell, but that is it mainly. And I thought, you know what? I'm in quite a safe space. There's not much kind of going on. I'm not going to think quickly and act immediately. I have got a bit more time to think about this. I'm just going to shoot the whole thing on this 50mm 1.2. And that's what I did. So I didn't even touch my 35 or my 85. So I gave myself that limitation because it was company, because it was a boring subject. I thought, well, okay, let me try and put limitations on myself to see what I create. Same thing. I was at the Geneva Motor Show a few years ago and I was shooting for Pirelli. I'm shooting a tire company in an indoor car show. There's not much more, Pirelli, and not much more boring you can get. So yeah. So again, I think I just shot everything on my 85 mil, but also trying to find reflections, trying to think, what can I use as foregrounds? That limitation of it being in a car show, I thought, well, okay, where are the interesting bits? So all I was doing was looking for reflections, bits that I could light, like glass boxes, like display cabinets. I thought, okay, if I shoot through that, can I get some reflected light on it? I got my mobile phone and I held it right up to the lens. So I had to start get like this kind of crisscross effect. And it's not how I'd usually shoot, but I needed to try and think, okay, how can I make this interesting? So yeah, they were kind of my limitations recently, I think. Yeah.
It's funny shooting with a fixed focal length. So for those that are listening, a 35 would probably be the sort of standard lens on a phone-ish. Pretty much.
Yeah, sun lens on a phone
You're
I think is 28mm. So it's
okay, 28.
I think I only know that because I got given a 28mm lens to use, and somebody said, "Oh, you'll never go back to the 35. The 28 is the thing you'll use." And I used it, and I realized I was like, "No, it looks like my phone." So no, so yeah, your phone's about 28. So they say that 35 is roughly your eyesight. So if you sat here, you lift a camera with a 35mm on a full frame camera up to your face,
It's
you would
about
more
like
or less
that,
see.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's more or less.
I'm holding my hands up invariably somewhere in my front of my face because obviously you can see really wide as well. You can see like a 16.
Yeah, in your peripheral. So yeah, it's somewhere in the middle before you get to your peripheral vision.
Yeah, shooting with a fixed lens. So you've got one view, like one thing on your phone or a camera or whatever. Shallow depth of field, as you were saying, you're a bit of a fan of, means that you get a really blurry background. If you're listening, and it's, I don't know whether you've had this experience. You could shoot a whole shoot on a 35 or 50, whatever it is you've chosen to do. The person looking at the pictures, they don't know. They haven't got a clue. They're like, yeah, cool pictures, great, thank you very much, like awesome. And you're like, oh yeah, I did just shoot that all on one lens.
Yeah, that's
No
what I do
problem.
all the time. That's my job. I just shoot everything on one or two lenses. I just think, okay, if I need it to be bigger in the picture, I'll move forwards if I can, and then if I need it to be wider, I'll move backwards. So that's kind of how I go. There's very few situations where I need it to be wider than 35 that I know of. I'm not going to be shooting in a super 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 tight space. So, but that's a limitation. So say I'm shooting a car on a narrow country road or something through a village. I think, okay, I can't get a profile shot of this here. So let's go front 3/4, see what we can get, or we'll try and get a profile shot somewhere else. But also I think if I'm going to try and shoot super wide, it's probably going to start looking a bit funny. You can fix it in Photoshop and stuff. But I just don't. I just kind of doesn't even cross my mind to do that. I just think, I'll move to a different location. So,
yes, and actually, I've definitely been caught up. If you've got loads of gear, and I could see why, if you're shooting a commercial gig, you might turn up with, even if you only use one lens, turn up with everything. Just turn up with like loads and loads and loads. And then you're like, I'm going to pull this specific recipe for this specific shoot, which is my 35. And then shoot the whole thing on the 35. Because they're like, this person's a professional.
Yep. It's honestly, one of the first big commercial shoots I did was really scary. The first commercial shoot I did was for Lexus in Los Angeles. So that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, I was 24, 25. I had barely left the country to do a shoot. So to have Lexus say, hey, do you want to come out to LA and do a shoot? I was like, and we're going to pay you loads of money. I was like, oh, okay. The pressure was insane. And I remember showing up and I had what camera was it? I think it was a Nikon D750, I think it was. And which is, it's if you get like camera nerdy, it's not the big boxy camera. Some people add your battery grip to the bottom to make it look like a big boxy camera, a big professional camera. It looks big and professional. And I showed up and the Digitech was like, let's see what this little thing can do. And suddenly my heart went, oh no, it's a terrible little camera. But
sorry, that's my personal camera that I just keep in my pocket. Here's my Hasselblad.
Let me just pop on this battery grip. Is this now professional? Now I can have batteries for longer. It was kind of one of those where a lot of it is, it's the same with wedding photography. The visual, if you look like you know what you're doing, you will be perceived to be better, which is absolute, I won't swear, rubbish. So
yes,
which is I remember the first time I showed up at a Goodwood event, because it was one of my first kind of like events to shoot. And I got my like harness that I wear that I've shot for weddings, and I put my two cameras and my two prime lenses on, and people at the time, not photographers now, but they question like, what on earth are you like doing? You're not going to get out your 70-200, what are you shooting with them?
Where's
and
the
I was
big
like,
white lens?
Yeah, with the big white lens with that red ring on the end. No, I'm a Nikon for a start. And it's I just thought this isn't me. It's not how I shoot. So I just was like, no, I'm just going to see what I can get doing what I know how to do, and I'll just do the best I can. And with complete doubt in my own mind, and then pop out something I was like, okay, I quite like that. Maybe you'll like this too. So that's kind of yeah, that was kind of it. So yeah, it isn't about the gear at all. It's just you use what you're comfortable with. And Nikon have been the brand I've had since I was 16, and I love them, and always will shoot with them. So when it comes down to kind of what you want to shoot with, it's down to whatever you're comfortable with. If that's a Hasselblad, cool, but it's not for me.
Yeah. Do you find that must initially being able to sort of blend in a little bit more? Like I love using like small. If we could have a camera that literally just looked like a phone but was actually not a phone, that would be the best, because people ignore you. Which I feel like for your style of photography is exactly what you want. You're like, just carry on, walk everywhere, don't move. Whereas, do you find like if you're shooting at Goodwood or something, and then they're like, well, you're a photographer, here's your tabard, which is the sort of overall whatever thing, or armband in some places, but it says like photographer, then people sort of treat you a bit differently.
Yes, they'll either be overly posy, or they'll say, oh no, I hate my photograph being taken, or whatever it is. And the amount of times I don't know if you get it. I get, oh, do you want me to spread over the bonnet? I get that quite a lot as well. Like, I must get that at least once a month. Do you not get that?
Who says that?
It's usually
nice.
It's usually a middle-aged man somewhere. Sorry, middle-aged.
I can imagine. Yeah, and I think you probably get a different response to me.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know they're trying to be funny, and so I laugh. Even though I've heard the joke many a time. So and it's sometimes I'll be like, go on then, yes please, and then nobody ever has done. So
then everyone's laughing and.
Yeah, but that's how the idea of when you show up to these shoots is that you've got to get on with the people that are around you. So you just kind of got to be very, very chilled out, very flexible, as you completely know as well. And so yeah, when you're trying to blend into things, the very first thing you do is try to if anything, the opposite. You incorporate yourself into the whole situation first, and you make yourself the norm before being this person that kind of sulks backwards and then photographs whatever's going on. So I kind of like you get on with everybody, you go say hello to everybody, and I've danced, I've limboed at weddings, I've you get involved, I've for wedding again, it's a lot of it was weddings because that's when you're really trying to kind of be inconspicuous, and but you can do that not by standing on the edge of the wall with a longer lens, by incorporating yourself, and you kind of like photographing whatever's going on in the moment with you, because you're part of that moment. So people aren't almost trying to ignore you or you trying to hide. If you're in that moment, you're kind of like, oh, hey, everybody. And you just kind of blend in weirdly by being right in the moment more than anything, if that makes sense. In some situations, you've got to shoot, got to get on with them and then kind of step back and shoot. But sometimes you've got to do the opposite and just be well involved.
That is such a good piece of advice. I'm not very good at it. I think I was looking on your Instagram and your website. I love your photos of people, and it's one of those things that I would like to shoot. I would like to shoot more people, less other stuff. But I'm not very good at getting amongst it. But I like that as I think as you say, the sort of the first thing when you're not sure, you're like, well, if I just get a long lens and I stand really far back, then like I can just maybe get some of these shots. But there's something massively different about being really far away, even if it's a great face or expression or whatever. There is something different about being really far away and shooting a photo, or being like basically in someone's photo. It's the camera reflects the person taking the photo, doesn't it? Yeah,
and it's kind of like I think personally, I don't know if I'm right. This is just how I feel, I guess, when I take the pictures. Is if you're shooting on a wider lens and you're in the moment, the person who's looking at your picture feels like they're there as well. The second that you step back and shoot with a longer lens, that is when you're starting to feel like an onlooker. You can visually see if you're close to that situation or far away from that situation. And you kind of want to, for me, I want to bring people into that situation. And so sometimes I'll shoot where, if I'm pushing a car, if I'm helping push a car, I'll shoot the hands that are next to me also pushing the car, because that's what I'm seeing from that angle. So by kind of throwing yourself in,
they're like, Amy, keep pushing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like just pushing with one finger as I'm trying to get shots. So
push it.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, it's Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine you'd be really good at it. You do a podcast. You're a good chatter. You should be able to chat to people and be like, "Hey, everybody," and get in there and no.
I need to do more. I need to set some rules and be like, you can go to whatever, and you're only allowed to take pictures of people. There can be a car in there somewhere, but you're only allowed to, like, just set that and then come away with it.
The next car event you do, whether that is a Sunday morning car meet at your local park or whatever it might be, if you do that and just make your own limitation just to shoot people, just see what you get. And
shoot people with a 24 or something where you're like, precisely. You've got to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any rules for photography?
What, like? What's a rule that you have?
Well, I feel like it's a bit of a dud question, to be honest, because there shouldn't really be, like, I don't think there should be rules, but like.
Okay, I know a rule. I've thought of one, but when shooting cars, but again, there aren't any rules because art is art and you can do whatever you want. And so what my rule would be somebody else's absolute must do or must not do. So for me, like my rule is if I'm shooting a car, for example, on a road or a track, no, not a track necessarily, but usually on a road, it cannot be skew-if in the road. It's got to be facing the correct way in the middle or something. I can't do a skew-if for me.
So you wouldn't do, if there's a road in front of you, you wouldn't do a three-quarter shot with the car across the road?
Absolutely not, no. For me, it looks like that person's about to drive into a hedge. But that's just me. I'd much rather have it facing the right way, and I will physically move over to a different part of the road and get a front three-quarter shot and using like the edge of the road going straight down the lens rather than it being a kind of a vista point shot. And then also the wheel cocked, I can't do that either. I have to have straight wheels, but I'm not a wheel turner. But again, that is completely not, other people do these things and have amazing images. Yeah. It's just not the way, it's my rule.
It's not your style, it's not your jam. I have one is if a car is moving, and oh wow, there's some amazing examples of this in commercial photography. But if a car is moving, the wheels need to be moving.
Yes.
That's my rule. You can't unsee this. Once someone's shown you this, you can't unsee it. And a car that's wheels are not moving is not moving.
No, even if it is the slightest bit of blur, it has to be something. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's the there's another one is doing any form of like aviation photography. I really want to be able to get better at it, but I can never get a helicopter propeller. Is that what they're called? Don't know. Blades
something like rotor blade. Rotor blade? My kid's into helicopters. Rotor blades.
Rotor blades or like airplane propellers. If they've got some motion, that is like the key for the exact same reason. Otherwise, it just looks static in the sky.
Yeah,
which sometimes
it would fall out of the sky.
Shooting. Yeah. So I shot a really cool shot of a bulldog with a helicopter coming at it. And of course, I've shot it super fast because I don't know what's happening. And so all of my blades are fixed in the sky. I'm like, I wish I could have had it a bit blurred, but never mind. It's a really cool shot anyway. I'm not gonna poo-poo myself for this. But I wish I could, do that as well.
That's the sort of thing that I would say that particular goal, like having motion in your car shots, is one of those things that like you kind of need to know what you're doing so that you've got extra brain capacity. So you're like, I know the car needs to be roughly here in the photo and like blah, 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 blah. And I'm on the right f-stop, whatever, all that sort of stuff. Is like, you've learned it, forgotten about it. And it's like just auto. And then you're like, right, what is the shutter speed for this situation? Because all situations are different.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get it wrong, you end up with a really blurry photo or a static one, which is not what you're after.
However, I once got taught by another photographer, and I've now taken this on as my own rule, that as long as, if you're doing like a panning shot where there's blur in it, as long as one part of that car is in focus, it doesn't matter which part of it, then that is fine. It's in shot. So I just go with like, as long as it's a half interesting part, i.e. like the headlight or a wheel, front wheel or a back wheel or back rear light, they're like my bits. As long as a bit of it is in focus, that's all I'm bothered about. So it doesn't have to be the whole thing with a longer lens. It just can be a bit of it.
And I would say that is like technically correct, as in like you've shot a technically correct photo if part of it. I'm gonna stick that. I'm the same thing. Something has to be in focus. Something has to be sharp, but it's like this. I guess the technical side behind it is it all depends on the angle of you onto the car and which way it's moving. So if it's like in front of you and it's going across, if you're for those listening, if the car's on a track and it's going perpendicular to you, so like across from right to left in a straight line, and you're going to catch it 90 degrees on, if you get a photo bang in front of you, the whole car will be sharp and the wheels will be spinning.
Yes, if you are not in the pit lane, that is. If you're to be at least in the grandstands.
Unless it's really, really far away, or really close, really close. If it's at like 2:00 and it's coming towards you, the front is probably going to be in focus. And then once it's gone past and it's at 10, 11, whatever, the back 3/4 is likely to be in focus. It's just like, that's just how it is. There is no other way of fudging that.
Yep.
Physics.
It's just physics. Yeah. I was going to say physics and I didn't know if that was the right word, but it is just physics.
So you mentioned that you've shot with Nikon forever, and you, I believe, are an ambassador for Nikon.
I am indeed.
That's pretty
cool. I'm a European ambassador. I got promoted about 3 years ago. So yeah, no, it's definitely probably one of my biggest achievements. I didn't do anything for it. I just got noticed, and so I'm not going to try and take any major credit. Some credit I'll take, but no,
I feel like you can take all of the credit.
Well, I managed to get that by on Instagram. I used to get DMs of people saying, "How can I improve my photography? How did you get into it?" Did quite a lot of
Nikon.
Yeah, it was basically a lot of the same questions, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do one massive blog post about, at the time it was blogging, but now it's just an article I've written on my website about how to do it, how to be a car photographer. And so this thing ended up being like a 10,000 word article, literally called "How to Be a Car Photographer" from my point of view.
Good name.
Nikon apparently saw that, and they liked the fact that I shared knowledge, because sometimes this world can be quite gatekeepery. And they just said, we know you've been using Nikon for a long time. Do you want to be a UK ambassador? And that was 2017. And at the time, I was the youngest ambassador they'd ever had. And they never had an automotive ambassador, I don't think. So it was like a double whammy for them. And so I was I got the phone call on my birthday. I was super chuffed. And then, since then, they decided to keep me around, and I got promoted, I think 3 years ago to European ambassador. So that's really cool. So it basically just means that I go and chat for them sometimes, and I just don't go and use anybody else's cameras. But to be honest, I wouldn't do, because I love what I shoot with Nikon. I think it's become integral to my style, and I'd have to learn everything all over again and buy a whole new kit. I'm not going to do that. But primarily it's because I now, like when I used to shoot weddings, that my assistant used to use Canon. And when I used to edit his photographs, I used to have to edit them slightly differently because they didn't look the same as mine, just from a different camera. And I just thought I would still prefer the way mine looked for whatever reasons they were at the time. But they're a brand I'm really close to, and will stick with for a long time.
That is super cool. So they asked you to speak at some events. Do you get some gear? Do they give you free gear?
Yes, so I get an allowance each year, which I don't use because I use the same gear for everything, and I always have done. So I like once a year I might ask for something, because I tell you what, one thing is I usually, because I use my 35mm so often, I've broken two of them, I think, by dropping them, or I think the last time one broke was at Revival last year. I don't know, I must have got some grit in it or something, but I ended up screwing up the gears in it. So I managed, I had to do, that was a limitation. I had to do a day and a half of Revival with only, I borrowed my old 35mm that got fixed back from my dad. And so who was at the event. And then I just used a 50 for a lot of it. But that's just because it's what I shoot 95% of my work on. And so then they've just announced, literally last week or the week before, that they've got a 35mm 1.2 coming out. And I was like, ooh, that sounds a bit of me, that does. So I've like timidly emailed my person, like, hey, can I please have one of this? But it's okay if I can't. But I know I get an allowance. So
you should be like, I need 3. 2 are going on eBay. Thank you.
Oh yeah. I think it's total honesty. I've never put something on eBay because I'm scared that Nikon would find out and then they'd be like, well, you obviously don't appreciate it. So no, I've never done it. I've just like get the free, the allowance, the free bits I'm allowed, which has been very handy. Like I've got a Nikon Z9 as well, but I got that from my allowance. And that's by far the most wicked piece of kit I've ever had. I'd love another one. That's their big mirrorless.
Was that your first mirrorless?
Yes, I did have a Z7, which is one of their first mirrorlesses as well. But for a few reasons, it wasn't for me. Like, mainly because it's a really beautiful, small, quite compact mirrorless camera, and because of that, the batteries are physically smaller. So I was having to change the batteries a lot, and I was like, this is a bit annoying. And I could have a battery grip on it as well, but I ended up just being hooked on my at the time D6, which I've still got. I still use as my secondary camera. And then Nikon ended up asking me and another ambassador, and I'm guessing a few other people that hadn't moved to the mirrorless system, why we hadn't. And we said that, and there was a couple of other bits that we were like, well, it'd be nice if they could do this. And they did all of it. They must have gone back to Nikon in Japan and just said, can we, this is some feedback we've had. And yeah, that they brought out the Z9. Then they used me and this other photographer to help promote it, but basically saying, look, get it in your hands, see what you think. And honest to God, the best camera I've ever had. And I want another one. Even though I love my D6, I would like to have a second one because of the Z9s, just because they're so great at what they do. It's my photography. I get a lot sharper pictures now from that, basically.
Really?
Just from, yeah. And also a lot less dud ones. So, you're not looking through the fact it's mirrorless. Initially, I hated the fact I couldn't feel a click, like especially if you're shooting in like a pit lane or something, really, to feel that click in your hands, even if you can't hear it, to feel it would make me think, okay, I know I got the shot. Whereas shooting mirrorless, obviously you don't feel anything, you don't hear anything, you just see in the Z9 this little flicker around the edge of the frame in your viewfinder, and that was it. And so I thought, that took me a little while to get used to it, but now I love it because similar to what we were talking about earlier, people don't know I'm there because it's silent. I can just be like,
yeah,
but it's not anymore. Of course, it's just like this little, and that's it. Not even that.
Yeah. You're like, click, click.
Yeah. So it's stealth mode, and especially if I'm working with like videographers, it's sometimes I'll be working on like a commercial shoot where I'll be doing behind the scenes, and the videography is the reason why we're all there, and I'm just doing behind the scenes stuff. So instead of me saying, sorry, can we do that all again for my little piddly behind the scenes stuff, or for the stills, I can shoot whilst they're filming because there's no sound. I'm not having to worry about the sound guy picking up my little click and him looking at me sideways, really frustrated that you can hear this clicking. So it's a great bit of kit. So
that is a great feature of them. The silent thing. Like when I got first mirrorless, it was silent, and you're suddenly like, well, hang on a minute. You should not employ anyone that doesn't have a mirrorless camera for anything that involves like video, because like they're going click 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 in the background, and your videographer hates you.
But also like it's
funny.
Especially if you're shooting something that's quite either mainly needs silence, or something where if you're shooting a wedding, I've never shot a wedding whilst being on mirrorless, but that bloody vicar will look at you like, could you please, I'm trying to do the serious bit here. So if you're like click 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 in the background, it must be off-putting. And you always try to be respectful with the people that you're working with, whether that be a videographer or a vicar. So if I'm shooting an interview, which is they're doing filming of an interview, I can get all my behind the scenes stuff at the same time, and it's a win-win. So no, I would like a second one, but I get too scared about asking Nikon for too much stuff at the same time. So, even though I know I'm allowed.
Put a note in your diary for like +1 year and be like, hi, this is going great. I'm still carrying around this old chunky thing. I remember the first time I had a 1DX at one point in time. The Canon, the big Canon, which would be similar to your D9?
6.
Is that a full D6? Is that a full big body?
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I went to something and like I unleashed the like whatever shutter speed like shooting rate it could do, and it was like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, this feels like crazy. And whereas now it's just like,
yeah,
30 frames a second.
yeah, exactly. It's but it's definitely something you've got to get used to. But I suppose the thing that really helped me improve as well was the fact that now you can see the images you're taking literally through the viewfinder. I'm not accidentally getting some accidental overexposed, underexposed shots or whatever, because you really can see what you're going to capture. And so yeah, that's very helpful, especially when you're shooting something that's super low light. Yeah, on some nighttime event.
Yeah, you can actually see. You're
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
I can see. I can make it brighter than it actually is. In the back. What are some of the favorite? What's your favorite? Whether it's like events? Yeah, what's your favorite event?
Oh, really boring answer, because it's probably the one that everybody says is the Goodwood Revival. So it's the one that I've loved from the beginning because of the life around the cars. But yeah, in saying that, also probably the Monaco Classic is the historic. I think is GP is probably a wicked event as well. I've only done it twice, I think it is. But I think it's really fun to do. Just the people. It's really small. And compact. I've never really ventured out of the pits and the kind of the first corners that you can walk to quite easily. But I really enjoy it. But there's something about I really would love to do the Le Mans Classic. I've never done that, or the 24 Hour.
Oh, sick event.
I've never done either of them. So I think they'd be really, really good fun. But again, it's anything to do with storytelling. So the thing that for me is less events, more like road trips. So I'd love to do some. I'd love to shoot the Dakar Rally or the Peking to Paris or something like that. Some long form storytelling adventure is right up my street, more than the kind of trackside events, because I'm not a track photographer. It's not the thing I ever really shoot.
Not your
I get
jam,
it.
yeah.
No, I go for the kind of novelty shots just to make sure I've got some part of the storytelling of the track stuff. But it's not my skill set. It's not my interest as much. So it's all the other bits that I want to shoot. So yeah, it's less events and more kind of the road trips.
And I presume, because I've seen that you are involved in some motorbike events.
Yes.
And do some things.
That's wicked, because so the people I usually work with for that a company called Mallet London. So Mallet, I think it's a French for like bag or something, MALLE, and they are just absolute mad events. There's the health and safety. I don't know how they get around it. It's the most incredible motorbike events, and I suppose with motorcycles, it's quite equally portrait photography as well as automotive, because if you've got a motorcycle, it's not like you're hiding your driver rider inside a car. They are as much part of that shot as the bike itself. So suddenly you are immediately a portrait photographer as well as a motorbike photographer. And those events are really good fun because it's all based around people and less about the kind of racing as much, as I suppose.
And the photos from, I was looking at one of your Mallet, what's it called? Mallet London?
Yep.
Yeah, the Great Mallet Rally. I'm sure that's probably not
yes.
it.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly the Great Mallet Rally. And from the most southern point, Lizard Point, to the most northern point of the UK with Castle of May. Again, it's a long road trip, and you get your luggage carried from for each day, basically. And you go along some of the wildest roads in the UK with some amazing people, and you just have the most beautiful time, and you're knackered by the end of it. It's the most stunning event to for me, motorcycle road trip to shoot more than anything, because all the bikes, usually you've got to be on something custom or classic. So if you're on some big tourer, you're allowed, but it's not as interesting. So everything you see is something that's a little bit silly of an idea to ride on that many miles. So and that's what I like. You pick to go through that pain because it's part of the fun. It's the most. I've done that event. I've done that road trip 4 times now. And I think at least 4 times. I would definitely do it again. The last time I did it was with my dad, year before last, so it would have been 2013. Because my dad has ridden motorcycles since he was a kid, 15. And I didn't get into it till I was like 26. And then, so we've now got to this point in our lives where I've now got into riding, and he's still young enough and able enough to ride long distances as well. We've had this very short period of crossover before, like, I've now had a baby, so I can't really do such things again, especially like, yeah. But, maybe until, if my child, if Ruben ends up growing up and getting into motorbikes, then already I'm panicking as a mother. I have no say in the matter whatsoever because of me riding. But like, that may be a point, but with my own dad, probably won't happen again. So that was a really special a trip to do.
The lit cool. And there's something about the motorbike scene and definitely those events where, and I guess it's the same for Revival and those sorts of events, where the people, they're all like dressed up or in some cool, they're all like a bit
they're
cool.
visually appealing.
They're visually appealing. So they're not just like your standard clothes that people wear. So that really adds to this atmosphere that you've also got the cool bikes and all the cool stuff.
Exactly. Like, it's not quite as magical if you're in some fluorescent head to toe weatherproof gear. Of course, you're probably going to be seen and safe and dry when you arrive. But it's the reason. It's like when people say, people who are not car people, they say, why would you drive a classic car daily, especially through the summer? When I was at university, I drove my Mini through the winter as well. That's why it's rotten now. But people would say, why would you choose to do this? And you just think, because I quite enjoy the suffering. I quite like the adventure of this little journey. And it's the same with riding motorcycles. Like, if I know that I'm going to be, like, okay, of course, if it's going to be wet, you do have some form of like hurricane suit. Is what the Malay guys have. But it's not going to be something that's off Amazon with all your reflective bits on it, and it's there's some element of style in it at the same time. So it's just kind of trying to balance the bit between having fun and not getting drenched to your bones.
Do you think you would drive a classic Mini if you didn't like taking photos?
Ooh, probably yes. I think so. I think it would have always been like anything to do with visual beauty. I think is something I gravitate towards. And I'm not talking about models or people in that sense, because I don't really. It's not a like I've shot David Gandy a number of times. Beautiful man, very easy to photograph. But I also have the only picture I have of my own that I've ever taken in my own house is a picture of a fisherman called Chris. And Chris has got the most incredible face, and he is he's got a massive nose and little yellow hat and galoshes and so I don't have a picture of David Gandy on my wall, but I do have a picture of this Chris the fisherman, because I think Chris was beautiful. And
he's got some cool stuff going on.
Yeah, and exactly. So I mean, David's fantastic because he's a massive car nut himself. He's got a gorgeous Jaguar XK120. I mean, it's nobody can deny he's a pretty man, but so therefore easy to photograph. But then when it comes down to any other kind of people classic cars, if they are interesting to look at, beautiful in that sense, and so that's when it comes down to like cars and the classic cars for me. I just think they're beautiful to look at. I studied metalsmithing jewelry, so I really like beautiful jewelry. Can't afford it, but then again, I can't afford the classic cars either. So, but anything it's visually interesting, architecture. I love great architecture. It's got to be something visually interesting and appealing. So yes, I think even if I wasn't into photography, I'd still like all of these things because they are visually beautiful. How some people absolutely are hooked by music. I'm a big music fan myself, but some people are really like that is their thing. They really appreciate every level of music, and you can listen to a song as a sound engineer and have a completely different experience as you and I might listen to a piece of music. And I think that's kind of how I feel with anything visual. So it's I try to really appreciate a lot of it is light, how light falls on something. And so I think I would always still be interested in cars, but I like art, and photography is a really quick way of making art. So I used to be a fine art painter, and it would take me, I don't know, 2 weeks to paint something. And I'd get frustrated with it because it'd go wrong, or something wasn't working as well as I wanted to, and I'd leave it for a few days and I'd come back to it. Whereas photography, you take it a shot and you think, well, that was crap, you get rid of it. You never look at it again. So it's a lot more, you become happy with your outcome quite quickly in comparison.
Do you get like properly excited when you get to like a location, or but like a, it could be a trip you're on or whatever, and you look around and you're like, oh, this place is awesome. I don't know how we're gonna do the photo, but like this is, I'm ready.
Yes, I think I kind of have that switched on all the time. So like, even to the extent of, if I'm going around, I'm on my normal day-to-day life, if I see a cool location, I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. And I'll save it as a pin on my phone. Like, even to the extent I walked to my local village hall, to the Mums and Tots group the other day, and there was a road that I'd noticed. I had never quite noticed it before, like, and the way, I don't know, the cars are parked, like, just normal cars. I thought, oh, I could use that for a shoot. That's quite, the way that light's coming down right now is quite nice. So, yes, but usually the bit that I usually feel that excited is if I'm somewhere like Scotland and I'm like, all of this gorgeous, light gorgeous, weather gorgeous. And that's when I get really excited. For the rest of the time, I'm usually having to really hunt. It's not usually something that really pops out at me and goes, this is amazing. But it's usually, I have to look for it. So no, there's been very few places that have actually been like, boom, this is stunning, let's shoot something here. It's usually been, I've had to find this, or we've had to get special permission to photograph here, so I knew it was coming. So something like that, basically.
Yeah, it's what you finding the right, like you say, you're walking down the street and you see that road and you're like, that angle there, ignore all of the stuff just outside of this angle, but that angle there, that is money.
Precisely. The amount of times where I've shot something and nobody has realized that either side of that have been some horrendous parked cars, the bin man have edited out or whatever, because you kind of seen, you're like, I have a vision here. I think one of them recently, what was it? I was shooting a Lamborghini shoot I said recently, a year ago now. And we ended up using like the back bin entrance for an office block. But the way the architecture was, I was like, oh, this is quite cool. This could work. And they're kind of looking at me like, all right then. Like, okay, so with them, I shot for Noble recently, and I said to them, I was like, oh, I reckon we should go on top of this car park in Leicester. And they were like, ooh, that's a dodgy end of Leicester. And are you sure about this? And I was like, yeah, car park. So, super, really cool location. Ended up being used by another friend of mine. Yes, that was a lot of concrete, a lot of kind of what were they? It was once covered by, like, it was a covered car park at the top, but they've taken the covers off, so just the remains of these kind of like brackets are still there, which is really cool. So it ended up being a really cool shoot. So it was one of those where I thought this could be. I'd never been there before. I thought I think this is cool from what I've seen on Google Maps and a quick Google. I think this is gonna be cool. So it was nice to then get there and be like, yeah, it is cool. My research did do well. So but it's a lot of the times there's a lot of research has to go into some of these places.
What's the worst or most challenging shoot you've had to do?
It was there's been lots of challenging ones for different reasons, whether we've been rained off, and it's, the amount of times I've done a motorbike shoot, bless them, for the same company, a really fantastic sat-nav company for motorbikes called Beeline. I've shot for them a number of times, and I think at least twice we have been totally rained off. I've not been rained off a shoot ever, like, until I shot for them. So because you can't shoot motorcycles well in pouring rain, so that was pretty rubbish. But on the other side of that, I shot for a very, very big motorcycle company in the States, and basically there was a lot of layers to why that was a really rubbish shoot. First thing they said was, if any of these photographs get leaked before the bike is launched, then we will take your house. And I was like, ooh. And I was like 26. I just bought my house. And I was like, that hit differently. And so that really scared me.
I'm going to sign this one.
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, man, all right, well, I guess I've got to do this. And then on that shoot, I had an assistant because it's a big commercial shoot. So I had an assistant that I didn't really ask for, but was very good. They set up my camera on a tripod that I never use. I don't ever use a tripod, in a predetermined location that had been signed off by the client. And then they had a cardboard cutout of the bike to go into shot first. And my assistant, set the height and angle of the camera to where they thought was great. And also the approved height and angles that you get given sometimes from automotive brands. Wow. And I showed up and I thought, what the hell am I meant to be doing here? Like, I'll press a button, but because you're being paid quite a lot of money, you think, I feel like a fraud. They're going to see that all I'm doing is showing that pressing a button. And then you have like the client come along with their assistant and the art director come along and then their assistant to come and give input. And sometimes input is given, not because it needs to be given, but because they feel like they have to give something for their own job.
They're there.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I will adjust the photo for that. Anyway, it just, there's so many layers to it. To that shoot, there were so many layers to it that I was just like, I absolutely hate all of this, and I could not wait to get home. So that was I would never work for that company again, I don't think, because of how they worked. It wasn't for me. Whereas, like, on the total flip side, I worked for Alpine. I shot one of their A110s, and we did a road trip from like London to Scotland. And it was all commercial, but they said, you just do you. We've got some locations that we think would look cool, but just go and do what you feel like you need to do. And I absolutely loved it. The freedom I got given was awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of shoots in between that you get a fantastic art director. I did a shoot for BMW and Mini last year, and my agency and the client were absolutely superb. So like it's exciting when you're working with other creative people who get what you're getting, and they're like, oh, well, what about this? I'm like, yeah, what about this? And they're like, yeah. And that makes for a really positive experience when shooting something collaboratively, especially when you have got a client, an art director, which is a lot with the big stuff. And so yeah, but so far, touch wood, I've not had too many terrible shoots. That was that American one was probably the worst, which is a shame.
It's funny,
really.
Isn't it?
They still paid me though, so I obviously did all right.
Yeah, and at that point, it's a bit like sometimes I guess getting like a consultant in or something. They're basically like, look, we kind of know what we want, but we're gonna have to pay someone, and we're like, there's a lot of money involved, so we have to pay someone. So we need a photographer. They're part of the process. We need an art director. They're going to decide it all. Like, we need an assistant. They're going to set up the camera, all of it. So we're going to pay you to press the button. That person's getting paid to edit it. That person's getting like. It must be good.
Exactly. And I just think to myself, if you just kind of, from my point, I suppose, because you must feel the same, but when you're freelance and you do a lot of work just for yourself as well, and I have full control over what I shoot and how I shoot it, and it's to suddenly be so controlled, I really struggled with. But like, I've been fired twice when I had like proper jobs, so I don't think I'm meant to be employed. But I like to work with people. So, and I think that's where like being freelance definitely works. But no, I struggle a bit with a hierarchy. If somebody tells me to do something because they say, if I don't agree with it, I'll argue. But that's why I got detention lots in school as well. So it was I like to work with people who we're all in the same kind of vision, and or that's fun. I'm happy to be pushed. But it's when it's do this because I say. I struggle with that.
Yeah, totally. Have you got any hobbies outside of photography and cars? Art,
motorcycling.
Motorcycling,
it's definitely a hobby. Music. I am a big music lover. It's probably about the only other hobby I have, because cars, photography, and motorcycles are my absolute joys as well as my jobs. But music is something that's not a job at all, and I really love anything, whether it is like it's in the morning, or I have like we switch the radio on. It sounds really like ponce. I have classic FM in the morning, so which is like kind of my morning thing. But then like my Spotify is the biggest range of music. I'm not a big lover of like current R&B, but that's probably about it. Anything else is kind of there'll be something that I really enjoy. And I love seeing live music as well.
Nice. Yeah. Me too.
You're nodding. Yeah.
I'm 100%. Got a guitar over there. Oh, there's actually
cool.
few around.
It's awesome to see people live, because like sometimes you like you can listen to somebody and you think, you know what, I don't love all of their music that I want to listen to a full album, but I think they'd be really cool live. So like the most recent, if you're a guitarist, what kind of music do you like before I kind of
I went like younger age, a bit of everything. Had a teacher that made me learn like everything. He was like, this is country music, learn to country. And you're like, what the is country music? Then went like all guitar-y, like Hendrixy, bluesy type stuff. I love all that. A bit of everything, really. Like just literally like a bit. Try and like learn a bit of everything, but mainly kind of bluesy, rocky type stuff.
Cool. I mean, so that it's very similar. So like technically the first gig I ever went to was Destiny's Child because my mate was going and they had a spare ticket. So it wasn't really of course it was a choice, but I was like, yeah, go on then. So that was the very first gig I went to at 9. But then when I was 12, my second gig was BB King and Gary Moore, which my dad took me to. And I was like, that's cool. So that was wicked. Oh my goodness. I can't remember. Could not remember.
That wasn't in at Wembley.
No, it wouldn't have been Wembley. It would have been something like Birmingham. It would have been somewhere a bit closer to my home as Leicester. Home. So
I went to see BB King with my dad, and I also went to see Gary Moore with my dad. I think they were slightly separate events, but they were like, awesome. It was quite funny. Well, you have seen them both. It must have been the same tour.
It must have been the same tour. It was so. Which was his last definitely tour, 12. It would have been. He was getting quite old then. Yeah, I think he sat down for most of it. Yeah, I'll have to ask my dad. But you know, that is kind of like the beginning. My dad has always listened to a lot of kind of soul and blues music, and so that's kind of where it started. A lot of the Beatles as well, but I didn't quite get the Beatles until I was a bit older. And then again, kind of really. Oh, there's people I can't get, and I'm really sorry for those listening. Pink Floyd. There's some tracks I adore. But there's some I'm just like, this is just weird. I don't understand this.
Yeah. I'm like lukewarm on Pink Floyd.
Yeah, it's but some tracks I really love. But no, it's like my husband and I have got a bit of a running joke where like music will be on and then I'll say to him, guess what? And he'll go, have you seen these live? I'm like, yes. So that's quite like it's the amount of I've seen quite a few gigs like people live, so it's the running joke we have. So but like I went with my dad 2 weeks ago to a gig. We drove all the way up to where was it? Bradford, basically. I think we drove up to Bradford to go and see this gig. Just a very small gig in a social club, but we made it into a road trip just for fun, basically. So, and he was really, really good. A chap called Parker Millsap. But then like there's a if you really like your kind of, I suppose, not country, but more like blues and I don't know, maybe there's the chap called Charlie Parr. And he was, again, somebody that I couldn't listen to a full album of, but live, one of the best live gigs I've ever been to in Coventry. Really, really wicked guy. So, music is definitely a huge part of my job. Same as, when you're editing for a long time or driving, traveling, what else do you do but listen to music? So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. I remember, I don't know when it would have been. Obviously, you would know. But you were the first person, and I don't think I'd seen it much before or since, that started putting songs in the descriptions of their Instagram posts.
Yes. Yeah. So I stopped doing,
I like that.
Go on. Well, this thing, I stopped doing it for a while because then Instagram had this new thing where you added music to the post. And in an attempt to kind of succumb to the Instagram rules of, being seen by people, I thought, I've got to put a song to this to then be seen by people. Otherwise, I'm only going to have my post shown to like 0.2% of my followers or whatever. So for a long time, I started just doing that, which was difficult because I was like, well, the song I'm listening to and I'm really enjoying at the minute, there's nothing that would relate well to this post, so I can't put that on. I've got to pick something that works well with the images I'm showing. But then recently I've decided to screw all that and I've just started up putting on the songs that I'm listening to again and what I'm enjoying. So yeah, for a lot of my posts at the very bottom, you'll see a song that either I'm loving at the minute or listening to at that time I'm posting. And yeah, it's just for my own benefit, joy really more than anything. So yeah, I'm glad you appreciate that.
I like it. It's like a little personal extra. So like there is a person behind here somewhere writing this stuff.
And I have to say, that's probably something that, I think, as you said earlier, Instagram I'm so done with at the minute. I don't feel there's anything it just makes me sad a lot of the time now, just because I can't be bothered to post anything. It's all, like, I suppose because I know it's not being seen by loads of people that follow me. And it's frustrating. I see I've got to do it because I have to, not because I want to anymore. And so putting a little bit of music at the bottom actually gives me some form of like kick to being like, oh, but this is a really cool song you want to share with some people. So when you put that on as well, so it does definitely help me find something and post it, basically. Although I'm a terrible poster now.
Do you feel pressure to make videos?
People ask, but I have personally no interest, because I really appreciate well-made videos, but I don't think I'd be good at it. I don't see in movement, in motion very well. I just see stills, like my brain sees stills well. And also the idea of bringing in sound as well. I'm like, ooh, that's a whole other world I've never even considered. And I think you need a lot of different gear, a lot more gear. So when it comes down to things like tripods, gimbals, not even thinking about the sound side of things, just the physical camera holding bit. And I really, at the minute, like the way that I shoot super, super lightweight, where I rock up with one backpack, 2 cameras, 3 lenses, and I can fit it into the overhead compartment on an airplane, and that's it. And I really like that freedom that I have. And I think the minute that you go video, you suddenly got a lot more gear and there's a lot more pressure. And so I'd much rather have an easier life where I do shoots that don't have that pressure and I just have a nice time. And I can, recommend a videographer, but I think the minute that if I was trying to do video, I don't think I'd do it as well as I could do photos, and therefore I worry that I'd jeopardize my own brand by trying to do something I'm not that good at. So people who can do both very well are unicorns, absolutely brilliant. I am not one of those people.
So hectic though. Hectic,
doing man,
all of it.
Yeah,
is hectic.
And then the editing side afterwards, I wouldn't even know how. So no, the extent that I do like videos is I waffle at a camera face on, basically, and that's about it. But when it comes down to actual beautiful video making, it's not for me. As you said, hectic. And if you think about going to work every day and what you do for your day-to-day life, if I can make my day job the most relaxed, lovely place to be, then I'm going to do that. And I think bringing in video would make it, I mean, you'd get used to it, but it's not something I'd even really want to try to. I love the job that I do now. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. And it is, as we talked about at the very beginning, of like putting some restrictions on, going like, yeah, technically might be possible. I might need to bring some more stuff with me. I have to think about this a lot. I'm going to have to do a lot more stuff. Whereas like, I feel like I do photos and I do them great. That's what I'm here for. I bring my camera, shoot the photos. You can use them on your website.
Yeah. And I do think that if I did start doing video, I imagine that the client would want the same amount of photographs that I would give if I wasn't doing video. So I would have to work twice as hard for very little more, I think. And I also don't think I would do either very well. And so I just think I'd much rather just stick to one and get hired by the people that hire me for what I'm good at, rather than me trying to please everybody else. So I kind of go with the avenue of the right people that want to work with me will find me, or I will find them. And if they want something else, then I'm not the right person, and I'm okay with that. But I've come to a point where I feel content in turning away the job if they want more than what I feel I can give well. So yeah, I'm also, like my dad, a terrible business person, but it's, I've managed to get this far and pay my bills, so I'm doing all right. But I've no interest of being a multimillionaire.
You're a Nikon ambassador. No D-type. That's like, you've reached the top.
No D-type for me though. So my husband's not going to be very happy about it.
Yeah, but if someone says you can drive it, then you can drive it without paying for it.
Yeah, that is the only thing what scares me most. I wouldn't want to crash it. So no, that would be I've been given the opportunity to drive certain things. I have driven some things, but I've only kind of found out the value of them afterwards, because I thought, I don't want to know what the value of this is right now, because that would scare me.
That way around.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, I think it's important for us to think about our day-to-day happiness in the small ways possible. So if you can bring a little bit more joy and a little less stress into your day-to-day, then that's a win in my books.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, like the ones where they're like, and can you just do a bit of? You're like, no, I've been down this route before.
Yeah, the worst jobs are when I had it once with somebody where they said, "Oh, hey, can we hire you for this?" It was just an evening event. It was like a 3-hour thing. I was like, "Yeah, no problem. Here's my rate." And they're like, "Okay, cool." And then you get an email about 3 or 4 days later being like, "Oh, sorry, can you start like half an hour earlier just because you want to get a few extra bits?" I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And then they're like, we need the pictures the same night, so can you edit? And I'm like, oh man. And then the final straw for me was like, actually, we want a backboard flash photo of every single person that comes through the door. And I was like, no. The event was like the following day, and I was like, you have added and added and added. This is too much. No, I'm not doing it. So yeah. Obviously, I never got asked to work for them again, but I was okay because I just thought that's not a job I'm willing to do. And it's after we've made this agreement and after I've said yes to the job, you can't keep adding things on. So yeah, I've said no, and they weren't very happy. But there we go.
Yeah, and in reality, I'd say most people, if you gave them five really nice photos from their thing, that's way better than like 400 of blah 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 blah.
Hugely, yeah. I mean, I also I over panic, so I do end up giving too many. But I think at that point, especially now, I try to think about like I give twice the amount of shots because one of them, because this day and age social media, if I can, I'll get one of the image portrait and one of it landscape. So you can use it on Instagram if you want, or you can go use it on your website. So already I've doubled my things. But I totally agree with you. It's much better to give fewer wicked shots rather than a hell of a lot of shots, basically. So yeah, when I look through my images, I just try to give everything that I would be happy as a photograph of my own rather than the bits in between.
That's a tricky one though. It's tricky if you've got a lot and you're
fine line.
400? Was that right?
Yeah.
Right, I'm aware that we're ticking along. So I normally wrap this up with 5 questions. Do you have a most memorable driving trip or journey?
Yes. It was 2021 March. It was COVID 2.0 lockdown, and it was the 60th anniversary of the Jaguar E-Type. So Jaguar said to me, "Hey, can we lend you an E-Type for a week, and can you go get some pictures?" Over that same week was my husband's birthday, so we took an E-Type and we did a road trip down to Cornwall and Devon, and the roads were empty. It was a job. It was an actual job. I was being asked to do this by a company. So it was completely legal. And we had the most amazing, quiet road trip in March as well. It was the light was low and gorgeous. And by far, that was probably one of the best trips of my life. Either that
sounds
or
pretty cool.
My first solo road trip up to Scotland with the Mini. That was another memorable one. So yeah, those two would be off the top of my head.
That sound pretty good. Lots of photo moments. Lots of hanging out with a cool car. If you could only drive one car for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably Mildred, my TD5 Defender, because I absolutely love it. She's been with me for quite a long time. Got sign writing all the way down the sides, a canvas roof, knobbly tires. I feel very safe in her. She doesn't go very fast. Like, she doesn't really like going above 60, 65 miles an hour. Whenever I get to any flooded bits in the UK, it's quite often. I'm like, this is fine. Off I go. And it's slightly ridiculous. Breaks down probably a little bit too much, but it's definitely the car that I would, if there's the only car I could have, that would definitely be my choice. There's other cars I'd love to have, I think, for a long time, but that is the one that I felt the most joy with for a long period of time anyway.
Yeah. What do you think is the most undervalued car? What should be worth more?
This is totally biased, and anybody who knows the other side of my job would call me out from this, but absolutely Jaguars, whether that is an E-Type or an XJS, they are people are going to argue with me. I think they are as good as the majority of the Aston Martins, Ferraris, just they've got one less zero on the end. And I think it's absolutely mad that more people don't quite realize this. Maybe because more of them were made, fair enough. But at the same time, I think the E-Type is one of the prettiest cars. I think the short wheelbase Ferrari and an E-Type are probably the two prettiest cars for me visually. I think they're stunning. I think like I've got an XJS, and I think I've wanted an XJS since I was 17 years old. I thought they were the coolest things. I think it's something quite muscular, meaty about them, and those kind of weird rear swooping buttresses at the back. I just think the design was so far forward of its time, and completely seemed to be, I mean, people seem to be talking about, just start to talk about them now. Chris Harris has just bought one, which he actually brought to our workshop to have a look at the underneath of it, which is really cool. And it's just suddenly like, yeah, I told you I thought these were cool. So yeah, no, I think I really, truly, not just because it's my other side of the job I do, but I truly think that they are wildly undervalued. I suppose the reason why I say that is because I see so many of them. You know, my husband William will come back and he's like, this is a wicked car because of this, you know, this heritage it's got, this, you know, it's got this person raced it, whatever, and it's only X amount or whatever it is. And you know, if you had a Ferrari equivalent, it would be so much more, and there's no difference other than the badge. And you just think, I totally understand. And you know, it's not like we're talking Rover to Ferrari, sorry Rover, or equivalent, but you know, it's I just think they are incredible machines that yeah, people just think old blokes drive slowly, but yeah, it doesn't. The fastest I've ever been driven in a car ever is in a Jaguar E-Type around the Gaydon test track, and I've got a photograph of the dial. I think it's something like 154 miles an hour, which I know is not really, really fast, but in a classic car,
quite quick in an old Jag.
Without any airbags, it's pretty quick. So yeah, it's no, it's I will sing about them until the cows come home. Is that the right terminology?
Something like that.
Something like that.
I realise we've not touched on at all, but I don't want to. We've rabbited on for quite a long time, so I don't want to add too much. But you are also involved in another business.
Yes, the long and short of it is, over COVID, I met my husband, and then we started a business restoring Jaguar E-Types when we'd only known each other for 8 months. He didn't have any money at all, so I said, so I was like, well, I quite fancy you, so why don't you I'll give you a load of my VAT savings from my photography.
Yeah.
The tax man will just I'll find the money elsewhere, basically, and we'll get a unit and we'll start restoring Jaguars, because that's what the knowledge you have is. And then we're now 3.5 years later, we've got 12 employees and about 30 cars on the books or something like that.
Wow.
We've got 3 units. It's absolutely mad. But it is, yeah, I don't get my husband, Will, is very, very nerdy. He can tell you the week that this car was built because of the drain hole that's in a petrol cap. I don't know any of that. I just show up, take some nice pictures, and then have to listen to him stress about the, you know, stresses of running your businesses. But yeah, it's the biggest learning curve I think we've ever had. And then, yeah, but it's working so far. It's just, yeah, it's mad. It is truly mad. So, no, it's the biggest, scariest thing that I have ever, and probably will ever do. When we started it, we both said, this will be the hardest. This will be harder than having a child is what we said, having never had a child. And then about it now. However, about 3 months ago, when our baby was 2 months old, we had this discussion. Thinking about what we said, do we still believe in that? And both of us agreed that it's still harder to start that workshop than it was to have a child. Like, you have so much support from people around you when you have a baby, and generally, I know not everybody is lucky to have that support, but in our case, you know, we had a lot of support from family and friends. But when you start the workshop, all you get is, oh, is that a good? That's a lot of money that you're putting into that. You know, you might lose it all. You might not get any customers. You've got, yeah, exactly. And you know, is there enough work for that? And you just think, I know none of that. We had proper sleepless nights when we first started that workshop, from stress, from panic, and we've had some of the worst days of our life with that workshop. But at the same time, you come out of it and you think, man, this is quite amazing what we've produced so far. And again, without no support, because there were definitely people that supported us, but very different support. Like in the industry, you get in the kind of the restoration industry, you get a lot of support initially until you start taking their work, and then you get very little support. You get the opposite. You're like, well, what, you know, it's because it's quite cut through. I'm so used to the photography side of the industry. It's very lovely, very fun, very happy. And it's all positive because you've got this, you know, really nice, cushy life. The restoration, the mechanical side of the kind of the industry is is quite scary. It's very cutthroat. It's a whole different vibe. Not in every sense, but you see a lot of that. A lot of the places go bust. A lot of them, people have been being arrested, going to jail for fraud, things like that. There's a lot more kind of the darker side of the car industry. So yeah, it's totally different, but eye opening for sure. And it's cool.
Definitely. 5-car garage. Got to fit into your life.
I've named 2 of them already. My own Defender still, a short wheelbase Ferrari, an E-Type, probably either a semi-lightweight or a kind of semi-lightweight E-Type, I think would be the first 3. Golly, this is hard. 2 more. It'd have to be not boring, a kind of a modern one. I would have an Alpine A110. I think they're wicked. I think they're such fun modern cars. You know what? I'll end with another slightly boring modern car. So I've got my kind of like classic. I've got my off-roader, my more fun track car, my fun classic kind of weekend car, a fun modern car, and then a kind of relaxed modern car. I'd get a Bentley Continental GT. I think they're gorgeous. Nice. They are one of the most comfortable places to be. I'm a big fan of Bentley, and I've driven a lot of them, and they're such a nice. I remember, I don't sharing too much information. I left my ex-fiance. It was quite a big deal, and I at the time had borrowed a Bentley, and so I'm sobbing. Got into this Bentley and drove to my mum and dad's, and I thought, well, at least I'm in a Bentley. That makes my life a little bit happier. So I remember doing the drive up from Oxford to Leicester, just like sobbing my eyes out with a suitcase in the back to go away for a few days. And I just remember thinking, well, this nice space makes my situation feel a bit better. So,
these knobs are very nice in here.
It's like the back of the paddles are these little like diamondy shape, and you kind of stroke them. You're like, that's nice. And then like the ends of the like the stalks are like this indented little bit, and your fingers just sit perfectly. And you're like, oh, this is nice. So, I've not even got to the massage seats and the actual sport mode or anything like that. But yeah, just I'm a big fan. So I think that would probably be my 5-car garage. I hope it's not too boring.
Sounds like a nice bunch. Nice bunch. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I hope people who don't mind us waffling on to each other about cars, photography, and
they'll be listening or they
music. Won't. If you've made it this far, well done. Thank you very much for listening.
Sweet.